Testosterone gets metabolized or broken down in our bodies, in both men and women, into estrogen, estradiol. Now, that enzyme is called aromatase, and aromatase is typically found in fat cells. This is the most common place to find aromatase enzyme. And so men who have more visceral fat on the inside, around their organs especially, those are the men who are going to convert more testosterone into estrogen. And so one of the causes of low testosterone can be that your testosterone simply being siphoned off, metabolized, converted into estradiol, which is not helpful. It's not harmful. The other cause of low testosterone is simply low production, or poor production. And that could either be from the brain not sending the right signals, or it could be from the testicles not making enough testosterone as a result of that signal. Either way, one of the most common causes of that is very clear from all the literature is endocrine disruption. And what that means is a fancy word for toxins in our environment that are crushing hormone production.
If you haven't done so already, go ahead and click that subscribe button down below. It's a little red button. You punch that, and it's going to notify you every time we put out a new episode that can help you improve your bone health. And then also, if you haven't done so already, head over to bonecoach.com, sign up for the free 7-day osteoporosis kickstart. That's going to walk you through everything you need to be doing right now to get on the path to improvement and stronger bones. After you do those two things, go ahead and press play on this episode, and I'll see you inside. Welcome to this episode of the Bone Coach Show. Joining us today to explore men's health, hormone optimization, and bone health is Dr. Tracy Gapin. Dr. Tracy Gapin is a renowned expert in men's health, optimization, and longevity with over 25 years of experience as a board-certified urologist. He founded the Gapin Institute to help high-performing individuals, including entrepreneurs, executives, athletes, achieve peak performance through personalized health programs. Dr. Gapin integrates advanced diagnostics, epigenetics, hormone therapy, and wearable technology to monitor and transform his clients' health, focusing on sustainable, measurable outcomes. A thought leader and author of bestsellers Male 2.0 and Codes of Longevity, Dr. Gapin has been featured on NBC, Entrepreneur Magazine, and at Dave Asprey's Biohacking Conference. He is a member of the American Academy of Anti-Aging, the Age Management Medical Group, and the International Peptide Society. Dr. Gapin, welcome to the show.
Kevin, thanks so much, man. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
I know. I'm looking forward to the conversation. And now with our audience, we have a lot of women in our audience, but a lot of them are focused on their bone health, osteoporosis, how they can improve. But they also might have a spouse, partner, significant other, a husband, or a son, or someone else who they're thinking about too, that is a man and is also concerned about their health, their bones, optimizing, making sure they're doing the right things to have the longest, best possible future too. That's why I thought this conversation with you was so relevant and going to be so helpful for our audience, so that we can not just learn for ourselves, we can also learn for the people around us too.
Hell yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important to point out that, my background was in men's health and peak performance, but a lot of the principles that we talk about with male entrepreneurs and athletes and executives applies to the everyday woman as well. And when it comes to maintaining bone health, and that's often connected to things like hormones and gut health and micronutrient levels and sleep and stress and all these factors that we talk about, they're relevant to everyone. And so I think that for any woman out there listening who wants to improve her bone health, everything we talk about today is going to be for you as well as for your husband.
And you focus on health optimization and peak performance. Let's just unpack health optimization for a minute. When we talk about health optimization, what are we focused on?
Yeah. So I come from the traditional world. It's not going to be like I come from a middle-class family. None of that stuff today. Kind of sounded like that when I started, didn't it? No, I come from traditional medicine, and in the medical, healthcare disease model world that I come from, 25 years in urology, every day, all we did was treat disease. It's what's your diagnosis code, and that may be bladder cancer, kidney stone, urinary infection, whatever it may be. And then here's the drug to treat it. So it's diagnosis, drug. And that's really what our healthcare system is based on. And this is why so many people are starting to scream from the rooftops that our healthcare is run by big pharma. And so, we're taught at a very early part in our medical training that it's all about find the right drug to treat the disease. Now what we focus on when we talk about the phrase health optimization and human performance and longevity, it's about a lot different perspective and approach. What it's really focused on is I want to have more energy. I want to have more cognitive function, focus, mental acuity, be able to carry out my daily tasks, be able to feel alive again, feel like a man or a woman like I did 20, 30, 40 years ago. We use a tagline of be your absolute best again, because we can all remember that day where we felt great and we had the energy and the vitality and the drive and the desire to live life to its fullest. And, our bodies weren't hurting. We didn't have joint pain. We didn't have gut issues. We weren't stressed out. It's, how can I sleep better? How can I have better sex? How can I work out better and have better recovery from injury? How can I really just be the best version of myself? And so when we look at health optimization and peak performance and longevity, those words mean something to each individual person. It means very differently. To me, it's honestly at a personal level, how can I be the best dad that I can be? Peak performance to me, Kevin, this, dear friend of mine, this about me, that my whole life is my family, my beautiful wife, my amazing little kids. I got a 10-year-old golf prodigy son and a little princess, spunky little sassy 9-year-old daughter. And her name is Slay Queen now, apparently. But it's all about how can I show up and be present and engaged to them. So peak performance to me is not competing in some Ironman triathlon. It's how can I show up and be the best dad? For some people, some women, it may be how can I show up and lead my small business, or how can I be a mom, or how can I be a leader in my community, for the PTO, for my church. For some men, it may be I have men who come to me because I want to be able to play pickleball like I did 20 years ago, or I want to be able to compete at a high level in athletics. So it means something different to everyone, Kevin. And I think this is where we need to shift our healthcare focus away from treating disease and more to how can we be our absolute best again.
Gosh, I love the tagline. I love how good of a father you are and how focused you are on that. You said some really relevant things to our audience. Number one, I know a lot of people that come to us, they're trying to avoid medication if they possibly can, or they're trying to take a natural approach. It's not saying that I'm anti-medication or that it's not warranted in some situations, but the majority of the time, there's so much more people can do before they ever even get to that point. So just being aware of that is really important. Figuring out how to create health instead of just avoid disease, I think, is a big part of this picture. And then what you touched on is, I think, really helpful to hear someone like you who focuses on peak performance and longevity to say that peak performance doesn't necessarily mean you have to be an Olympian, right? Or somebody who's training for a triathlon. It could be for who you are, where you're at right now in your present situation, just getting to the point where you're living your best possible life. So I love that. Very relevant for this audience. Let's talk about what role does the diagnostic side play in this? So advanced diagnostics, when we're looking at different types of markers, genetics, those kinds of things, how do we use that to start helping create a personalized strategy?
Yeah, great question. And I get this all the time when I give talks or even when I'm with clients. It's like, what supplement should I take? What food should I be eating and not eating? What's right for me? What peptides should I be looking at? What workout program is best for me? All these questions, how do I improve my sleep? And the answer is, well, unfortunately, it's not the answer people want to hear. It depends. It depends on, your blind spots. And I call them blind spots because we all have health issues that are lurking right under the surface that are causing major issues that we don't even realize are there. And so I believe that diagnostics are really the first step in anything we do when it relates to health, when it comes to what should I be eating, what supplementation is right for me, how do I improve my sleep, what workout program should I be focused on, how do I clear toxins from my body, all these kind of, detox, anything you could think of. What are the tests that we need to be looking at? And so I really believe in blood testing first, and blood testing to look at things like hormones. And for both men and women, we want to look at things like testosterone. Testosterone is actually important for women as well. People think of it as just for men, but gosh, when we look at bone health, one of the key hormones for women is testosterone. And so we got to be looking at testosterone. Thyroid is intimately tied to energy and metabolism and focus and sleep and helping to regulate our gut. And also it affects bone health as well. So thyroid hormone, estrogen, vitamin D, as we know, vitamin D and calcium are critical for immune function and energy and bone health, et cetera. There are a lot of other, and vitamin D is actually a hormone, not a vitamin. Some people didn't know that. Nitric oxide, there are 50 hormones that we need to be looking at when we talk about optimization. We need to be looking at markers of inflammation, markers of blood sugar regulation, lipid health. lipid markers, most commonly, you go to a doctor and they do total cholesterol, LDL, HDL, and they tell you, yeah, you're fine. Or, oh my gosh, your total cholesterol is high. You need to be on a statin. Well, I call BS on that because there are a lot of complex markers that give a much more applicable, relevant, impactful picture of our lipid metabolism. Things like ApoB, apolipoprotein B, is probably the most important marker to evaluate cardiovascular health in men and women. We know without question that the way to live longer is to not die, right? And so the most common cause of mortality, the number one cause of death in both men and women, is cardiovascular disease. And the most common cause of that is issues with lipids. And so ApoB is a marker that everybody should be checking because it tells you the number of atherogenic particles that can cause problems. LP little a, it's a marker for, it's a subtype of LDL that is a marker for genetically inherited lipid issues. Markers for detoxification, all these blood labs that we can be doing that can then help us take the next step, which is taking a much deeper dive into more advanced functional tests as well.
Hey, it's Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. I want to take one more minute to talk about if you are somebody who was newly diagnosed with osteopenia or osteoporosis, and you're at a point where you're stressed, you're worried, you're overwhelmed, you have no idea where to start or how to get started getting confident in your plan. I want to tell you about the Stronger Bone Solution Program. Over 5,000 people have come through this Stronger Bone Solution Program, and it walks you through the exact process you need to fill in the missing pieces, uncover critical things in your plan that you may not be aware of, and help you make modifications, adjustments, and tweaks to get you to the place where you're building stronger bones. I want you to get confident in your plan so that you can focus on living life and enjoying the life that you deserve with the people you love most. So if that's where you want to be, head over to bonecoach.com/apply and apply for our Stronger Bone Solution Program right now. I'm Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. I want to see you inside this program. I want to help you get on the path to improvement and stronger bones. Hope to see you inside very soon. Let's get back to the episode. So let's go a little bit more granular here and talk about optimal levels within some of those most important markers if we can.
Yeah.
So let's go down
Sure.
maybe a list of some of the most important and just optimal levels that you like to see in people.
Yeah, great question. So let's talk about testosterone first. It's important to point out that your doctor is typically going to get, if they check testosterone at all, which most don't, they're looking at total testosterone. Total testosterone is all the testosterone molecules floating in your bloodstream. The problem is that for testosterone to do anything, it has to get into a cell. So it diffuses, it goes through the cell wall membrane. It binds to an androgen receptor, which is a special molecule that then brings it like a transporter, a chauffeur, into the nucleus or the brains of the cell. And that's where all the magic happens. So whether it's a muscle cell, brain cell, you name it, for testosterone to do anything, it has to get inside the cell and then the nucleus. The problem is most testosterone, in fact, 99% of testosterone molecules are bound, are stuck, are attached to these big, fluffy, cloud-like proteins in the blood that render it useless. It cannot get into the cell. It can't do anything because it's too big. It's too big and fluffy. And so we only care about free testosterone. And so that's the explanation of why don't look at total, only look at free testosterone. For men, you want a free testosterone of around 20. Now that's picograms per milliliter, and that's a LabCorp number. What's really weird is if you use Quest, it's going to be 200 picograms per milliliter, same unit, which makes absolutely no sense. It's the way they run their labs, but 20 for LabCorp, 200 for Quest, looking at free testosterone in men. Now, women, typically that number is a lot lower. Typically, we're looking for maybe 20 or so. So 10, 15, 20, 30, somewhere in that kind of ballpark range. Most men I see, they come in with a free T of 4, 1/5 of where it should be. Most women come in with a free T of 1. And again, it should be maybe, 10, 15, 20, somewhere in that kind of ballpark. And so typically free testosterone levels are markedly diminished. Studies show that we're undergoing a testosterone epidemic where levels are plummeting because of toxins in our environment, our food, our drinking water, personal care products, etc. So that's free testosterone. Thyroid, you want to be looking not at TSH. Again, your doctor's going to check the wrong lab yet again. TSH is the signal from your brain to tell the thyroid to make thyroid hormone. We want to be looking at free T3, which is the active, bioavailable, active form of thyroid hormone. And you want your free T3 to be around 4.0, anywhere from 3.5 to 4.5 or so, but 4.0 is a target for that. we can look at estradiol. Now, estradiol is a little tricky because it depends on where women are in their cycle, so that can vary. And if you're postmenopausal, your numbers will be very, very low. And so we want to recognize that that's going to vary quite a bit. Any postmenopausal woman, I think it's super important to point out. I know other experts on your show have talked about the benefits of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Women need testosterone. They need estrogen for adequate, healthy bones. And so, we look at the crappy WHI trial, the study years ago that suggested that hormones are harmful for women. I tell you what, that study was harmful for women's health because what it did is it scared everybody by making them falsely believe that hormones are bad. Hormones are not bad. Synthetic hormones are bad. And so for women, especially, the synthetic estrogens, the synthetic progesterones, those can cause cancer. Yes, we know that. Bioidentical estradiol and bioidentical progesterone are incredibly beneficial. And so your levels for estrogen, it definitely varies. I would say, and around 100 would be a target if you're on replacement therapy. But again, that depends on the individual and where you are in your cycle if you're pre-menopausal. For men, estradiol, it's interesting. Most men think of estrogen as the enemy, but for men, estradiol is actually healthy. And we need it. I've seen guys who are taking estrogen blockers and they come in and their estradiol is like 5, and it should be like 20 to 40, but it could be as high as 80, and I'm okay with it. When it's low, it can cause things like ED, erection problems, low sex drive, weight gain, mood issues where you're irritable, cranky, depressed, moody. So we want adequate, healthy estradiol levels. What's important for men is the balance between testosterone and estrogen. See, when you have low testosterone and high estrogen, yeah, you're going to have a lot of problems. You're storing fat, you have poor metabolism, energy, et cetera. When you have optimal testosterone levels, we're okay with estradiol creeping up there to higher levels. It's more about the balance of those. So those are kind of the key hormones we look at. Vitamin D would be another one that you can measure very easily, and our target for that is 60 to 80. Incredibly important for immune function, energy, metabolism, bone health, you name it. Vitamin D is a really critical hormone. So those are some good ones to start with.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks so much for the detail there. Let's go. And I know because we're somewhat focused a little bit more on men for this specific episode. And what I want to do is let's talk about the testosterone and estrogen piece just a little bit more, because let's say somebody has low testosterone and high estrogen or higher estrogen, or maybe they just have low testosterone.
Sure.
What are the contributing factors to that?
Yeah.
And what are some of the things on the natural side? We're going to get into the exogenous things that we can bring in, shortly. But what are the things, the natural things that can be done to support healthy testosterone and hormone levels in men?
Sure. So testosterone gets metabolized or broken down in our bodies, in both men and women, into estrogen, estradiol. Okay. Now that enzyme is called aromatase, and aromatase is typically found in fat cells. This is the most common place to find aromatase enzyme. And so men who have more visceral fat on the inside around their organs, especially, those are the men who are going to convert more testosterone into estrogen. And so one of the causes of low testosterone can be that your testosterone simply being siphoned off, metabolized, converted into estradiol, which is not helpful. It's not harmful. Again, that balance is so important. And when you have a lot of excess body fat and visceral fat, it's just converting that healthy testosterone that you want into estradiol, which again is not a bad hormone. I want to emphasize it's not that we don't want estrogen, it's that we want proper levels. We want balance of the two. The other cause of low testosterone is simply low production or poor production. And that could either be from the brain not sending the right signals, or it could be from the testicles not making enough testosterone as a result of that signal. Either way, one of the most common causes of that is very clear from all the literature is endocrine disruption. And what that means is a fancy word for toxins in our environment that are crushing hormone production. Now, that could be in our drinking water. We know that there are chemicals in our drinking water. BPA and phthalates are in our drinking water, a bunch of other organophosphates. Oral birth control. So, women's oral birth control, when women take synthetic estrogen and they urinate it out, it cannot get adequately and completely filtered by the municipal treatment centers locally. And so what happens is it's still in our drinking water at detectable levels. And so we're drinking that water, and it's actually like glue, where these estrogenic synthetic molecules don't leave. They enter our body and they get stuck like glue, and they turn on androgen receptors, and they don't let go and go away. You can't get rid of them. And so that's the harm of these chemicals, is that you don't just ingest them and excrete them. They stick around and they cause a lot of problems. It's almost like a light switch that does never turn off. It's overstimulation. And so our drinking water is a big problem. Our food supply, our crops are sprayed with atrazine, which is an herbicide, and it has been shown to crush testosterone production. We know that plastic water bottles, plastic sports bottles, plastic food containers, these are all made with BPA, bisphenol A, and phthalates. Phthalates are what makes plastic bendy and flexible. These chemicals have been shown to directly crush testosterone production. We know that our animals, if you eat meat, the animals we're eating, if you're not eating organic, these animals are getting fed synthetic hormones that we know are crushing our testosterone production as well. Personal care products, laundry detergent, soap, shampoo, deodorant, sunscreen, you name it. All of these products have chemicals that have been shown to directly impact testosterone production. It is scary how we are living in this soup of endocrine disruption, and it's getting worse and worse as more and more chemicals and products are invading our environment. And what's scary, Kevin, is here in the US, that there's just not much oversight or regulation in these chemicals. You go to Europe and most of these chemicals are banned in our food and our personal care products. They're just not there because companies can't use them. And so there's thankfully starting to be much more awareness around these chemicals and how they're crushing our health, crushing our hormones, are causing infertility and autoimmune disease and cancers and obesity. And what's even worse, I don't mean to scare the listeners here, but there's a transgenerational effect as well. What that means is studies are showing that our grandparents are exposed to chemicals, which then get attached to sperm, which get passed down to our fathers, which get passed down to us, and so on and so on. It's getting worse and starting to become an exponential effect. So it's so important that we really start to pay attention and wake up and do things to eliminate these exposures.
Yeah. So even going down that path of all the potential toxins and negative things that could be impacting levels, you mentioned quite a few there. It's so important to be aware of these things and know that number one, when it comes to like your water and things like that, you can invest in filtration systems, bring those into your homes, whether you're doing whole house filtration, reverse osmosis, adding something else in to filter some of that stuff out. That can be really helpful. Personal care products, we're seeing a rise in more of these brands that are trying to pop up, and they might be a little pricier. They might be a little bit more of an investment, but they're trying to bring better products to market. I would encourage people, find those brands, seek those brands out that don't have all the harmful chemicals, and support their businesses, even if you're paying a little bit more. It's unfortunate. Sometimes I see these brands trying to get started on Facebook and their ads, and people are like, well, it's so expensive. You have to understand, from someone who's trying to bring a new, healthier, less chemical laden product, they're competing with these big organizations with massive marketing budgets. And you really got to help out these smaller companies that are trying to do right for the American people and the rest of the people in the world. So
absolutely. And going back to the water filter thing briefly, I think it's important to point out that this is simple, easy, inexpensive thing you can do to add a filter to just your tap water and your ice. Massive difference right there. There's not a lot of expense. We added a filter to our whole house when we were building 3-4 years ago, but you can do this very cost effectively by putting a filter, attach it to your fridge for the ice maker, and under your sink for tap water. Super, super easy. When it comes to the personal care products, there are a couple great apps that are free if you like free things. From the Environmental Working Group, an app called Healthy Living, where you can scan barcodes of products. You go into the store and you can scan barcodes, and it'll tell you the actual ingredients and whether those ingredients are harmful or not, and it can give you some alternatives. So important, the awareness. You're right. It's more expensive to eat organic. It's more expensive to eat clean foods and use personal care products that are clean. But man, it's so worth it. And every little step, every little micro decision you make adds up and has a cumulative effect.
yeah, so important. And even the last note I'll make about this is the eating clean. Again, I hear people say a lot of times, oh, it's so expensive to buy organic or to buy regenerative, or yeah, but you're supporting the farmer who's trying to support a much bigger picture than just that one single meal that's going on your plate, right? They're trying to do right for all of us. by supporting the way that agriculture is supposed to be done. And I feel like we really need to, if we can find more dollars in other places that we're spending that may not be as important as what you're putting into your body, go and support those regenerative farmers and other people doing those things. So, all right, I'll get off my soapbox about that, but
I agree. I agree.
I think it's important. So, all right, we talked about some of the things that can impact testosterone levels. Now let's talk about some of the positive things, and then let's also get into if somebody is going to go the route of incorporating testosterone replacement therapy into their plan. So let's talk about the natural side, and then a consideration that a lot of men probably have too at this point.
Yep. Sure. So yeah, so a lot of guys when they first find out that their levels are lower than they should be, they look at the natural things to do, like, reducing stress, start to improve the quality of your sleep, improve your workouts, especially, heavy, big muscles like leg muscles, back muscles, core muscles, start to get some strength training improvement, improve micronutrients, improve your nutrition, clear toxins or remove exposures, all these things that you can do to, naturally boost testosterone. And those are incredibly important. I don't want to diminish those at all. What I find is, as effective as those are for our whole bodies, they don't tend to make a dramatic difference in testosterone levels over the long term. What I mean by that is, yes, those things have been shown to increase testosterone, but let's say your free T is 4, which I'll tell you, most of the guys who get tested, it's somewhere around 4 to 5 to 6 range. I actually have 2 NFL players, wide receivers who play every Sunday in the NFL right now, and both their free T levels were 6. Like, how is that possible, right? It's crazy.
Wow.
So let's say your free T level is 4, 5, 6, and you do all the perfect lifestyle maneuvers for 6 months. You eat perfectly, which no one does. You eliminate stress, which no one can do. You sleep perfectly, no one's going to do. You get your strength training dialed in correctly. Very tough for most people to make that dramatic change. All these things that we talk about, most people aren't going to do them religiously because they're not already, and it's very tough to make those big changes. But even then, they don't typically move the needle enough. And it's almost like a catch-22 where if you had optimal testosterone levels, you would be so much more motivated to make the right decisions every day. I'd be so much more driven to go to the gym. I'd be more productive during the day. I'd be able to get my stuff done, be more efficient so that now I can go to sleep when I'm supposed to instead of staying up grinding, burning the midnight oil, working still. I'm much less stressed because I get my shit done so that I can actually spend quality time with my family and I have work-life balance. It all changes. And so it becomes this catch-22 where once you optimize testosterone levels, all the things that you were supposed to be doing, you're now able to do better and, be more compliant, if you will, be more dedicated to making those changes. And so that's why for most guys, we end up looking at testosterone replacement therapy, because not that it's the easy button, but it's the fastest way I can get you to doing the stuff you're supposed to be doing and get you motivated and driven to do that. And so that's really what it's all about. And for the listener out there, if you were to do those things religiously, the natural ways to boost testosterone for 6 months straight, that 4 would get to maybe 9 or 10, 11, somewhere around there. Again, my goal where I would want you to be is 20. And you just can't get there. In my experience, it's almost like the damage has been done, Kevin. It's like from the generations of damage that we've seen, it's tough to undo that with just a few months of some lifestyle work. And so that's why we look at TRT. And so to answer your question, most guys, we end up, talking about the options for TRT replacement therapy. And then we can get into different routes of administration if you'd like, or, side effects, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah. Let's unpack this a little bit now too. So
yeah,
TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, a lot of times I'm sure there's stigma around this for sure, where there's some people are like, for the people who go to the gym a lot and work out, the big bodybuilders, they call that gear or steroid use. What's the difference between testosterone replacement therapy and that category that a lot of people might bunch that into?
Yeah, massive difference there. So I want to clarify that when we're talking about testosterone replacement therapy, yes, it is by definition a steroid hormone. That's what testosterone is. Estradiol is a steroid hormone as well. DHEA, all these healthy hormones that we need are steroid hormones. Make no mistake about that. The difference is we're talking about getting your levels where they're supposed to be. When we talk about optimization, it's how can I get you to, again, be your absolute best again, like you were when you were 25. What that means is a free testosterone of 20 in men and 5, 10, 15 for women, somewhere in that kind of ballpark range again. But when we're talking about a bodybuilder, instead of looking at 20, a bodybuilder is looking at 200, a free T of 200. Massively different story, different, exponentially different levels, different experience, different side effects, complications, a whole different world of issues when you're talking about those kind of levels. So again, we're talking about trying to get you back to the levels you're supposed to have.
Understood. Now let's talk about, and thanks for clarifying that too, because I know that's what a lot of people think too, but now you understand there's a massive difference. We're trying to get you back to normal, or, the goals of the other people may be 10x higher than just normal. So
That's right.
Thanks for the clarification. Now let's talk about when we go the path of testosterone replacement therapy, what are the options out there we're talking men specifically, what are the options out there? And then after that, we'll go to the risks too.
Yeah, sure. So the most common ways of replacing testosterone are, number one, injections. And I'll talk about that in a moment. 2 would be topical, and 3 would be pellets. And I'll add the most recent new one, oral. So injectable is the way that I typically recommend to start. And I personally am on testosterone replacement, and I do testosterone injections myself. The key is that testosterone can give you a nice, healthy, stable, consistent level. And when you do injections 3 times a week, twice a week, maybe, it's going to help you get to a nice steady state and gives you some convenience factor where you're not having to take it or apply it every single day. By doing that, you're going to be able to get levels up to a nice healthy level. Again, for most men, around 20 is a target. And we judge symptomatic improvement, feeling the individual. Some guys may need only 15. Other guys may need 20, 25, 30 even. And so it depends on the individual. But with injections, you can really dial that in very, very precisely of what level you want and get to a steady state. You could do it intramuscular, which is the old school, old fashioned way, in the butt or in the thigh. And that's pretty painful. That's not what I recommend. That's not what I do, because I'm a wimp with needles myself. I can cut you open, but don't make me have to inject myself with a big needle, right? So I do sub-Q, and I recommend sub-Q. It's like a 28 gauge, tiny little needle you do just under the skin and the belly. You barely feel it. And again, 2 or 3 times a week is a great interval to get nice, healthy, consistent, stable levels. So that's what I recommend for most guys. The alternative to that would be topical, where you apply it to the scrotum. Every morning when you first wake up, after you shower, you apply about like a dime-sized amount of a cream onto the scrotum. And the scrotum is used because that's an incredibly absorptive area. It's probably the best spot in your entire body for absorbing testosterone. And so that's another option as well. There's some nuance around the differences between that and injectable. So I tend to, again, lean toward injectable. But for some guys, topical may be a good way to go. You got to do it every single day if you do topical, though, because it wears off so fast. And so most guys don't want to do that every morning. You got to be careful if you get any of that cream on your hands. You don't want to be touching your kids, because it can be transferred through skin as well. So be careful with that. And then pellets are a long-term option, where you put these little tiny, they look like rabbit food, and you implant these pellets in the buttock or the lower back. And these pellets will slowly release testosterone over about a 4-month time period. So it's a nice long-term option. I don't love pellets because in my clinical experience, I found that the absorption can vary dramatically, and the levels that we're trying to get are not consistent with them. And so it's a long-term option. I don't love that for most guys, especially not when you're first starting out. And then recently, there's a new oral one that a lot of people are raving about. I have a very limited experience with it, but apparently it's great at maintaining consistent levels as well. You have to take it twice a day is the problem with it. Most guys just taking something consistently twice a day. It's just remembering it, compliance, that kind of, so a lot of guys get pill fatigue. And so that's another option. That's always been something orally that's not been recommended because there's some liver toxicity with it, but they figured out a way to change the absorption to where that doesn't happen anymore. Limited experience with the oral, but that's something that's coming out more and more now as another option.
Now, once you start testosterone replacement therapy, does that then shut down all natural production and then create the dependency that you need to stay on it indefinitely, basically?
That's my favorite question that anyone ever asked me, Kevin. And I swear every single client asked me that. And my response is that yes, testosterone, whether your body makes it or whether you give it exogenously through injectable, topical, pellets, whatever, that tells the brain to turn off the signal, which is LH, luteinizing hormone from the pituitary. It turns off that signal so that your body doesn't make it because it senses it has enough. The key point that I'll bring up here is that why are you taking testosterone replacement therapy in the first place? Because your levels suck, because your levels are not where they need to be, because your body's not making it. Why? We've already talked about that. Toxins, transgenerational, etc. We know the why. We know that for whatever reason, your body's not making enough testosterone and you're not going to be able to naturally get it to where it needs to be. So therefore, that's why we're taking testosterone. And so I tell guys, you can stop testosterone whenever you want to feel like shit again. Your levels will go back to where they were before, and you'll be back where you were at square one. What happens though, it's funny, Kevin, when guys start testosterone, a few months later, the question then becomes, Doc, you're not gonna ever make me stop this, are you? Like, can I take this forever, like long term now? Like they realize how they should have felt all along. They're like, holy cow, I'm not stopping this. There's no way I'm stopping this. And so the question pivots once you feel the difference. And that's really the truth of it, is that yes, it's shutting off your own body's chromie production, which wasn't enough anyway. And so we're supplementing it with what it needs.
Understood. Okay. Let's talk about the risks now. So I'm sure there are lots of great benefits you already talked about: improved sex drive, performance, all these different things, energy levels, lots of great things that happen when you have good, healthy testosterone and hormone levels.
That's right.
Then let's talk about the risks of not having good, healthy hormone levels too. Let's start with that, and then we'll go to the risks of testosterone replacement therapy.
Sure. So low testosterone for both men and women, you're looking at low energy, fatigue, low overall sense of vitality, well-being, poor cognitive function, mental acuity, memory, focus, concentration, mood, bone health, muscle density, body fat, recovery status, sex drive, sexual performance, increased cardiovascular disease. Now, that's a key point I'm going to come back to in a second. Problems with sexual performance in men, longevity decline, increased mortality, increased incidence of prostate cancer in men, increased incidence of Alzheimer's disease. All these diseases, these issues, we have found directly correlate with low testosterone. Insulin resistance, which is basically the early stages of diabetes. All of these directly tie to low testosterone and the subsequent effects from it. When we replace testosterone, you have all the qualitative benefits of cognitive function, mood, memory, focus, concentration, sex drive, recovery, ability to build muscle, ability to burn fat, ability to have better, healthier, stronger bones. But one of the key things that's really important, and I talked about this earlier, is the number one way to live longer is to not die. And we know the best way to do that is to reduce cardiovascular risk. And in fact, we know without question, study after study, dozens of studies, in fact, now show that when you optimize testosterone levels, you are reducing cardiovascular risk dramatically. When you replace testosterone, you are reducing cardiovascular risk dramatically. And that's really the key point that I want to emphasize here, that we're not just talking about building muscle, having better sex, looking better. We're talking about actual longevity. We're talking about increasing lifespan, improving health span, improving quality of life by optimizing hormones. And one of the big ones is testosterone. And so those are all the benefits. What are the real risks of testosterone? Number one, when you start on it, you're probably going to be on it long term. And so it's going to, turn off whatever production you have. But when you stop it, it will eventually come back to the crummy levels it had before. For men, sometimes you can get a higher red blood cell count. Testosterone stimulates your bones to increase red blood cell production. It's not actually, some people call it polycythemia, which is an actual blood disorder. Is actually erythrocytosis. Basically, that means your body's making too many red blood cells. The theoretical concern is you could think of, too many cars on the highway, you get congestion, you get sludging, risk for clots and heart attack, stroke. Interestingly, that's never been shown to be the case. So while, increased red blood cell count is a risk or a quote, air quote, complication of testosterone, you look at people who live in the Swiss Alps or who live in the Rockies at altitude, and their hemoglobin levels are dramatically elevated to handle the low oxygen concentration at those heights. And they don't have an increased risk of heart attacks, strokes, blood clots. And so there's never been a study to show that it's actually theoretical. And so, while the risk is increased red blood cells, we just tell guys to donate blood every quarter, every 6 months, just to decrease that count. And that eliminates that risk completely. So that's the biggest risk that we hear about. I have had some men on testosterone who will have some swelling in their legs. Typically, when we see some edema or swelling in the lower extremity, typically the levels are a little too high. For some men, when they're on testosterone, that may raise their estradiol levels or estrogen levels to where they start to have some symptoms from that. Breast sensitivity, breast tenderness, overly moody, crying over puppy movies or chick flicks. And when we see that, we can simply adjust the estrogen levels to get them to where they need to be. And that's very easy to correct as well. Kevin, that's about it, man. In terms of side effects or risks or complications, that's about it. Better quality of life, better longevity. Those are basically the key highlights of testosterone replacement.
Hey, it's Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Bone Coach Show. If you're finding it helpful, please leave a positive rating and review. Hit that like button, subscribe to the podcast or the channel. That lets us help more people and reach and serve more people. And it also lets us know that this is helpful to you on your journey to better health and stronger bones. And then also, right down in the show notes, you can actually find a link to my free Bone Healthy Recipes Guide. That's going to give you access to some amazing and delicious recipes to support your journey to stronger bones. And then also, we have a link to my free Stronger Bones Masterclass in the show notes too. And that is the 3-step process that has helped people in over 1,500 cities around the world get confident in their plan for stronger bones. Over 110,000 people have taken part in this, and it's been really, really helpful for them. And I want you to have free access to it too. So add your name and email right down there in the show notes, get access to that free Stronger Bones Masterclass, and let's get you confident in your Stronger Bones plan today. That's fantastic. And one of the things you were saying was if you have low testosterone levels, that increases issues with bone health. That's absolutely correct. And for our audience, this is extremely relevant too. You're going to increase the risk of osteoporosis if you have low testosterone long-term. So that's an important one. The cardiovascular disease risk, of course, that's important. We don't want that risk going higher. Low testosterone levels contributes to that. And then the other one you mentioned is that, which you're a urologist also, so you understand this intimately, prostate cancer risk goes down with healthy testosterone levels, right? So no concerns with testosterone replacement therapy and prostate health or prostate cancer.
Yeah. And that was, interestingly, that was something when I was back in my old career as a urologist for decades, we would tell guys that testosterone is like gasoline on the fire. Don't take testosterone. It's bad for you. It's harmful. We now know that's all been discredited, disproven. And we now understand that men with low T have a higher risk of clinically significant harmful prostate cancer that needs to be treated. And we know that when we increase testosterone, it does not increase risk of prostate cancer at all. And in fact, studies have shown that men who have been treated for cancer with either surgery or radiation, they can be given testosterone replacement therapy, and it does not appear to increase their risk of a cancer recurrence at all. And we know that even men on active surveillance for low-grade cancer, meaning men have prostate cancer, it's low-grade that they're not even treated, they were just following it very closely. Even those men can be on testosterone replacement therapy, and it doesn't change the risk of the cancer progressing. Really key point there.
That's fantastic. Dr. Tracy Gapin, this has been a fantastic and interesting episode. I want to make sure people know where they can find you, or if you're listening to this and you're like, you know what, I have a spouse, partner, significant other, husband, maybe a son, or somebody else that is dealing with some issues that we talked about today. I would highly encourage you to reach out to Dr. Tracy, and if you want to share your contact information, where they can find you, we'll link all that stuff in the show notes.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So website's gapininstitute.com. That's GAPIN institute.com. And I have a bunch of freebies. I like to give away free stuff. So if you go to gapininstitute.com/launch, LAUNCH, I'll give away a bunch of freebies. I have a free copy of my best-selling book, Male 2.0. I have a high-performance health handbook. I have a peptide guide, goes through all the latest cutting-edge peptides. I have a copy of my TED Talk. I have a masterclass. And then there's a link. If anyone wants to reach out to my team, there's a link. Jump on a free call there as well.
That's fantastic. Now, we didn't talk about peptides, but maybe we can spin out 60 to 90 seconds of peptide talk just for a second. Is that part of a healthy longevity protocol, is incorporating peptides? I know there is some regulation around some of the peptides, right? So maybe we could talk.
I love peptides. Peptides are amazing. We could spend an entire other hour talking about all the amazing peptides to help with reducing inflammation, helping with musculoskeletal repair, helping with gut health, helping with mental function, cognitive function, focus, memory, concentration, helping with sleep, helping with repair and recovery, and you name it, there are amazing peptides. And what's really great about peptides is they are signaling molecules that come from our own bodies. They're not drugs, they're not pharmaceuticals. They're just simply short chains of amino acids that have very specific purpose and function and typically no side effects. But the key is you got to source them properly. Don't go to any direct-to-consumer company. If you can swipe a credit card to buy them, don't buy them. That's the key.
Fantastic advice, and I wholeheartedly agree with that. So thank you so much, Dr. Tracy Gapin. Everybody for listening. You can find all the resources, show notes, everything mentioned here today over at bonecoach.com. Again, you can head over to gapininstitute.com and find all the resources there too. Thanks everybody so much for your time. We'll see you in the next episode. Hey, it's Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. Hope you found that episode helpful and that you enjoyed it. Just one last reminder, if you haven't done so already, head over to bonecoach.com, sign up for your free 7-day osteoporosis kickstart. It's going to tell you everything you need to do to start getting on the path to improvement. Hope you found this helpful. I'm your Bone Coach Kevin Ellis. I'll see you soon.